IGDTUW Anveshan Foundation. For this particular session, the topic is very important related to the today's need, which is not required only by our country, but also required by the complete world. As you all must be knowing about the Anveshan Foundation, Anveshan Foundation is basically an incubation center which is promoted by a women university of Delhi government, which is Indira Gandhi Delhi Technical University for Women. The university is running various technical and management related courses at UG, PG, and doctorate level. And since we are a women university, we are entertaining only women. So, as that part, also we are doing something for the society towards our sustainable development goal number 5, that is gender equality. Our university is doing very well in both the front, number one on the placement front also and on the entrepreneurship front also. Our girls are getting packages, and the highest package is more than 50 lakhs rupees per annum, and average package is approximately 20 lakh rupees per annum. So this is considered as IIT for girls. I hope that many of our students, those who are attending this particular session, they all know about the milestones we are achieving from the front of placement. And apart from that, as our incubation center caters only women, we are also having entertaining number of women entrepreneurs who are incubatees or pre-incubatees associated with Anveshan Foundation. Approximately more than 100 girls of IGDTUW are associated with our incubation center as incubatee or as pre-incubatee. So with this particular concept of women empowerment, women education, and women enlightenment, we are moving from various fronts and continuing to our mentorship session, which is basically sponsored by GIZ Germany, not GIZ India. We are conducting various boot camps, workshops, and hackathons, demo days. And this is a mentorship session, which is 22 number of series we will have to conduct till the month of April. And today we are having a very eminent personality from ILO, that is International Labour Office Organization. And ma'am is Bharti Birla. Bharti Birla ma'am is working as a project manager with ILO with the South Asian region, and she is also working as a chief technology officer, that is CTO. And in today's session, she will be talking about gender equality, basically for students, for scholars, and for women entrepreneurs. And for the male members also, how to give opportunities to the counterpart, that is women entrepreneurs, that is we all can work together to achieve the sustainable development goals till the agenda of the project at 2030, what all we can do, where we are, and what all we should do, that we will be discussing in this particular session. Aarti Birla ma'am, once again, I welcome you on behalf of our university, Indira Gandhi Delhi Technical University for Women, and our incubation center. I request you kindly to share your thoughts with this particular topic. Welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rora, for giving me this opportunity. I'll share my screen so that I can make the presentation, and I'll encourage all the students and the faculty to also share their thoughts and their views while I speak about gender equality in the world of work, and especially why students, scholars, and entrepreneurs need to look at the issue of gender equality, why it is important for all of them. uh, I think before I move on to SDG 5, all of you are quite aware of SDG goals because you're doing a series on SDG, different SDG goals, as I understand, and I think most of your participants here would be familiar with these goals. I think what is important to understand is that most of these goals are interrelated. So even when we talk about SDG 5, we know that they are actually interlinked to many of the other sustainable development goals. And the whole idea of these goals is to take a holistic approach to address different challenges, especially in the context of sustainable development. And its core is that there should be economic, social, and environmental dimensions to these goals, and also that these goals are quite ambitious. They are integrated, they are indivisible, and they're quite global in nature. Even though they are nationally adapted, the very notion that all of them have to be implemented not just by the UN, but all the countries and all the stakeholders, including CSOs, including universities, corporates, private and public enterprises. So it's a common goal for every one of us. uh, I think one more important thing to remember is that there is a focus on people, on planet, on prosperity, peace, and partnership. And I think this is very critical when we talk about sustainable development goals, because these goals are not just related to only, uh, you know, about men and women, but they are also related to how what happens on our planet, what happens in terms of climate change, or what are we leaving behind for our future generation. uh, and also, how do we partner with each other? You are a university, you are an innovation center, but the question is how you as a university, a women's technical university, and how as an innovation center you can also contribute to the sustainable development goals. And the larger aim is also to have prosperity. Men and women who are living together, ultimate goal is to achieve social justice. And how do you achieve social justice? By ensuring that livelihoods for everyone is more dignified. There is a prosperity, because when you're prosperous, you can invest in other creative things. And also, finally, that there is peace and inclusiveness, there is justice. So all of these goals are also moving towards these larger 5 P's, as we call them, and with focus on people, with focus on planet, prosperity, peace, and partnership. I think the question is, why are we talking about SDG 5, which is on gender equality? And the challenge with Zoom is that I can't see the participants, but I would like, uh, if any one of you would like to actually come in at this stage and say and talk about what is your idea of SDG 5 and why are we focusing on SDG 5. So I'll encourage some of you to actually speak up, if possible. uh, Dr. Rora, would that be possible for some of the faculty or students to interact?
Yeah, some of the students, if you can interact that, why this gender equality is important from your perspective. We want to understand your views about SDG, as ma'am was telling us that there are total 17 SDG. These are set up by United Nations. And the purpose is this, that in 15 years at least we get something. So we want to know about your views, your perspective, that what do you think about the gender equality and why it is important?
I think we have a hand raised. Can you kindly unmute yourself and speak?
Yeah, good morning, madam. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, my name is Dr. Purushottam. Though it is meant for a woman, I hope I will be able to join and share my perspective. See, ultimately, if you want to create prosperity, the intellect of a human beings matters. So the human beings consist of both men and women, almost 50-50.
Yes.
So if you wanted to generate prosperity, I think we should provide equal opportunity for both men and women. So in that perspective, the gender equity is very, very essential because of different cultures, different systems. The women in our society, they were not being given adequate opportunities. So that is why the UN Sustainable Development Goals have included the gender equity so that each and every human being on the earth gets the justice and gets the opportunity to give their best to the socio-economic development of the nation or the world as a whole.
Right. Thank you, sir. Very nicely put. And And that is what the aim of this goal 5 on gender equality is. I mean, most of the time we see that whenever there is a program on gender, we only find women attending those programs. But I was very happy that you responded, because gender is not just about women and men, it's about our gender roles within the society. And while sex is something which is determined biologically, how we are born, our biological functions, gender is more social construct. Gender is about how the society perceives what men and women should do. So issue of gender is not just about women, it's about men and women, it's about transgenders, it's about people who may be biologically of one sex, but mentally and what they do in society, it could be of a different it may be perceived in a different way. So may be perceived of a different gender. So the issue of gender equality becomes very, very critical when we are talking about these things. And it's important to understand why do we really need to focus on that. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about why are we talking about gender equality. One of the key things that you might have also seen is that men earn more than women. So if a man is earning $1, a woman would earn 77 cents for the same work. If they're doing same work, it is men who get paid more. And this is not just data from India, it is a global data. So for same work, same value of work, men get paid more. Why? We'll see why. We also see that 1 in every 3 women experience physical and sexual violence. Now, I'm not saying that men don't experience violence, men also experience violence, but the incidence of violence is more in women. And violence is also connected with power, who has power. So if we look at men also, men who have more power can inflict violence on men who don't have power. So it's also power relationship that is evident. But generally speaking, women suffer more violence, physical as well as sexual violence, not just in the public sphere, but also within the private sphere. Now, when there is violence, can you really work? Can you work to your full potential? So that's the challenge that we are facing. Uh, Agriculture, for example, I picked up agriculture because India is a country which is largely dependent on agriculture, and a lot of men and women are engaged in agriculture. But the question is, how many women actually own agricultural land? Just 13%. And this is across the world. This is not just India, this is across the world. The ownership of land, which also symbolizes economic independence, power, is not held by women. It's largely held by men across the world. Another issue is about early marriage. If you look at the women I'm talking about today, around 750 million women and girls were married before the age of 18, and which means that they have to bear the child at an early age, their potential to work in the labor market, and all of that get affected, their growth, their nutrition, their the ability to actually create is lost because of this early marriage. Another important issue is that we have been able to achieve a great deal on primary education. Even in India, our data is very good. We have this right to education. Because of that, there is also campaigns like Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. With this, we have a quite good achievement in terms of primary education in India, and across the world also. The number has increased. But if you look at higher education, if you look at technical education, STEM education, in which you are, how many women actually reach higher education? How many women actually get into science or maths, or engineering? The proportions are very, very small. And therefore, professionally also, they're not never able to earn as much as men do, because of different reasons, which we'll come to later. Another issue is very, very critical is about decision making. Who has the power to decide? Who makes the policies? Who makes the programs in a country? Who makes schemes? Well, only 20, I mean, just before we heard doctor speak about how women are 50% of the population, but if women are 50% of the population, and if you look at the parliament, they're only 24% present in the parliament. So the voices of women, is not there in the legislature, and legislature actually decides who makes what kind of laws, what kind of are those laws, are those policies, or are all those schemes, do they have a gender component in that, or are they gender blind? And therefore we need women in parliament as well. uh, Now let's come to India. If you look at India, the situation is very similar to the situation in across the world. For example, if you look at the number of primary education, it's 100%, but when you come to higher education, it's 74.6%. If you come to literacy, only 65% of the women are literate compared to around 82% of men. So if the women are not literate, how do you expect them to get into jobs? How do you expect them to earn more? And if you look at Lok Sabha, we just have 11% women in the Lok Sabha. Even though we have a substantial around 46% in the Panchayati Raj institutions, but Parliament, we just have 11%. And just like another challenge is female feticide, which you are quite aware. So the sex ratio is 919 girls per 1,000 boys. Now, generally speaking, if you look at the natural birth ratio is seen, there should be more girls than men, than boys born naturally. But what we see is that it's 919 compared to 1,000 per 1,000 boys, which means that female feticide is happening in India. Also, if you look at the population of women, which is 48.5% of the population of India is women. It should be 50%, maybe more than 50% based on the natural sex ratio, but it is not. So it is 48.5. But out of this 48.5, only 27.4% of the women are in workforce. Why is it so? Why are women not working? Is it only cultural issues that, in many of our societies, we don't want women to work, we want women to take care of the children? Is it only that, or there is more to it? And that's something that I would maybe discuss this also in my coming slides. So if we look at, women, we need women in leadership roles. We want them to be present in national parliaments. We want them to be present in international parliaments. We also need to look at how we can, stop violence against women. Because if you look at COVID pandemic, and you might have read many newspaper reports, the burden on women increased tremendously during COVID. And one of the key things was that the violence increased. Violence not just in the public sphere, but also within homes. The incidence of domestic violence increased during COVID. Men were out of job. There was huge pressure to sustain the families, and the violence increased. Women could not go out to work. They were staying at home all the time. And at one side, the violence was increasing. On the other side, if you look at the COVID frontline workers, all the ASHA workers, Anganwadi workers, healthcare workers, nurses, they're all dominated by women. So we need them. We need them in healthcare. All the teachers have been working throughout the pandemic. They have been taking classes. They had no holidays. And most of the teachers are also women. So in the front line, even though women have been fighting the COVID pandemic, in homes, the violence increased. And also the household burdens during the pandemic also increased. in India, women already spend more than 4 hours. Men just spend 11, almost like 1 hour, 11 minutes per day to do household work in India. And women spend around 4.5 hours. And we are kind of worst in the world, uh, just above Pakistan. So this is the situation in India. In many other countries, men and women share the household work equally. But if you look at India, men are doing around 1 hour, 11 minutes of work every day, and women are doing around 4.5 hours of household work every day. So already there is, this imbalance between the household work, which men and women do for the family. But during the pandemic, the load on the women household work, it actually increased even more than that. So what do we need to do? We need to make sure, and that's what SDG 5 is all about. We need to look at how we can promote opportunities for men and women in the economic life, in the elimination of violence, and in elimination of forced marriage and equal participation of women at all levels, whether it is parliament, whether it's public institutions, whether it's teaching, whether it's corporates. Everywhere women should be given opportunity. One of the key things apart from the violence is how do we recognize and values women's work at home. uh, Women do a lot of household work, but what is the monetary value of the work that they do? For example, if the woman is teaching the child at home, now if you hire a tuition teacher, how much would that cost? If the woman is cooking meals, how much money would you pay to get the meals cooked from another domestic worker or cook at home? So similarly, how do you recognize the value of women's work at home? That is very important. Not just women's work, even if you look at domestic work, for example, the domestic maids that come to your home, they are the lowest paid. They even get paid lower than the standard minimum wages, which are available to all workers. They don't have rights as all other workers because domestic work is also seen as an extension of women's work. And like women's work is undervalued, it is seen as labor of love, or the care that the woman is offering to the family. Similarly, the domestic work is also not paid like other workers, even though the domestic workers are workers and they have all rights equal to other workers. But generally you see that their wages are very low because it is seen, this the work that they do is seen as an extension of women's work, which is also undervalued. We also need to see how do we encourage women and girls in political and economic and public spheres. India did a very good thing by reserving position of women in the local elections in the panchayats, and we have seen a tremendous change in the panchayat where reservation of women has helped. Now, how does this also spread to other institutions? How do we encourage women's participation? And what are the rights under the law for men and women? India was probably one of the countries where women got the right to vote as soon as India got independent. But if you look at many other countries, women didn't even have the right to vote. They didn't have the right to work. They didn't have the right to drive cars, for example. So the question is, are the laws and policies discriminatory, or are they actually helping men and women to share responsibilities? The fact is that men also do a lot of household work. They might be dropping children to school, might be getting milk for them in the morning, or vegetables in the morning, taking care of old parents, a lot of other things men also do. But how do you recognize household work and the value of household work, which men and women both are doing within the family? So goal 5, it entails 6 goals. It talks about uh, ending discrimination against women. It talks about eliminating all forms of violence. It talks about elimination of harmful practices like child marriage, forced marriage, female genital mutilation, recognizing paid and domestic work. And many times you also know that women are not able to go to work because there are no crutches for children. So men are usually going, and it is expected that women would take care of children. And usually, just want to give you an example of Indian Construction Workers Act, which says that, which earlier used to say that any place where 50 or more women are working, that place should have a crutch. Now, do men not have children? Why should we say that children is only the responsibility of women? Why can't we say that crutches should be there where 50 people are working, where 50 men and women are working? Because many times men also have to take care of children, and suppose the woman is sick or the woman is also working, then it becomes equal responsibility of the man and the woman to take care of the child. So there was a huge representation, and finally, the Government of India Ministry of Labor actually changed it to 50 men and women working. So this is, provision of this public services for care is also very important. And how do men and women share the responsibilities at home? It also talks about equal opportunities, equal rights, and to economic resources, equal use of technology, and also legislation equality, how the legislations actually promote gender equality and empowerment. Now, many of you are familiar with these concepts, and you know that there is a difference between sex and gender. Sex is about biological differences. It's about how we were born, and gender is about how we socially construct men and women to behave. For example, I'm a boy, I cannot cry. I'm a boy, I need to earn for the family. I'm a boy, I cannot put on nail polish. This is not how we are born. This is what has been told to us by the society. These are socially constructed norms. I'm a girl, I cannot come late at night. I'm a girl, I cannot, for example, uh, uh, I cannot take up jobs which are demanding. I cannot travel because I need to take care of children. This is not biologically determined. This is determined by the society. And what happens is that we have these cultural norms and values which are there, at the individual level. Then these cultural and uh, values are perpetuated into the interpersonal or the social network or into the communities. Then it comes into the in the organizations. This is how the organizations also start thinking that men can do this, women can't do this. And then finally what happens is that these thoughts actually go into the public policy. So the question is, how do we change that? How do we understand that, yes, as a boy I can also take care of children, as a boy I can also cry, as a girl I can also come late provided there is enough safety and security. For example, now the Government of India has allowed night work for women, provided that the employer actually provides safety and security to the women, so the women can also work at night. So these socially constructed norms need to be broken. What is biological is biological. Yes, mothers, women bear children, they have to feed the child, that's fine, but that's what it is. It doesn't go beyond that. So how do we change these societal differences between men and women is important. Now, initially, when we talk about gender, the gender roles are a little different from sex. Sex, as I said, was about motherhood, breastfeeding, menstruation, which we all know cannot be changed. These are biological differences. But when we think about gender, things like women should do care and household work. Can't men do household work? In fact, many of the best cook are men. When we talk about violence and harassment, there is physical and sexual harassment and violence, and women tend to get more of that. Uh, but men also suffer societal violence. It's not just women. Also, women have lower access to quality education, nutrition, and healthcare. It is related to gender. It is not related to sex, because many times the families want to invest on the education of a male child rather than a female child. Similarly, men are given food first, and the leftover is eaten by a woman. This is a societal norm, not because of our biological differences. Also, there are lack of opportunities, there are early marriages, and all this happens also because of the unequal power relationships. Now, how do we change that? How do we ensure that there is political power and representation, there is economic opportunities for men and women, both men and women, because there are many men also who come from excluded communities, who come from communities where they don't get that power and they're not able to fully function in the labor market. How do we ensure education, technology reaches everyone? All gender is about men and women. It's not just about women. So we have to keep that in mind, that there are uh, uh, these differences that can happen in both men and women, and also about harassment and sexual harassment and violence at workplace. Now, how did we tackle gender? Uh, Previously, when the policies were formed, those were gender blind. They thought men and women are same, and they should be treated in the same way. So there was a sameness. But then came the protectionist approach. Protectionist approach basically means that, okay, women are weak and they need to be protected. So what do? You don't allow them to go to, say, Middle East for work unless they're 30 years old. So you introduce policies like age ban, okay, because we want to protect you, we want to keep you safe. Therefore, we will provide for safety and security for you. But slowly it was realized that it creates more barriers. It doesn't create empowerment. So you don't need protection. What you need is equality and equity. And what is equality and equity? Let's see that. So we need equality in outcomes, which means that men and women are different, but they're equal. We don't want men and women to become same. That's not the idea. They are different. We need to acknowledge those differences, but they should have outcomes which are equal. So how do we do that? How do we eliminate discrimination? Through corrective and positive action. For example, if women are not present in parliament, we have reservation for women in parliament, so that the outcome of 50-50% presence in the parliament can be achieved. So this is what is sort of considered gender equality. But does it always remain really mean equality? Even if we do that, what we really find that sometimes uh, there are gender blind, gender discrimination, or gender neutral policies. And just to explain this, I want to take you back to this story of you must have read it 100 times when you were children, and might have actually uh, might remember that this is about a fox and a swan. And you know the fox invited the swan to his home and offered food in a shallow bowl. Now, of course, with the beak, the swan cannot eat. So next time, the swan invited the fox to her home and served the food in a long pot with a long neck. Now, the fox cannot eat it. So this is what was happening when we are talking about our gender policies. But what we really need is, the swan needs a vessel which has a long neck, and the fox needs a vessel which is shallow so that they can eat. And that's what is about being gender sensitive. So what we really need is that we need gender mainstreaming and gender sensitivity at all levels. And you must have often heard the word gender mainstreaming, which is about how do we make sure that gender equality is achieved at each level, whatever we are doing, whether we are in a university, whether we are an entrepreneur, whether we are a mother or a teacher, or whatever we are doing. How do we mainstream the issues of gender? How do we understand that we have equality in outcome for men and women? How do we see that men and women are get equal opportunities, and we recognize the difference between men and women? So coming to gender equality once again, equality is about giving same things. So this is a picture where you see that three people want to see a match in a stadium, and you give a stool of equal height to everyone. The person who has the smallest height will not be able to see the match. So you need to provide, when we are talking about equality in outcome, we're talking about equity. Equity basically means that we have to accommodate the challenges and make sure that they are able to, for example, in this case, able to watch the match. You give two stools to the person with the shorter height. Similarly, if you're talking about disability, if there is a bicycle race, can a person with, when you think about equality, you would allow the person who on a wheelchair to also participate. But the question is, can the person in wheelchair compete with people on bike? Is the wheelchair fast enough? So if you want equity, then you need to give a, a bike which is disabled friendly. And that's what is equality, because that is giving equality in the outcome. So what we really need to do in context of gender equality is that we need to recognize what are the existing inequalities today. For example, women are not literate, women are not going to higher education. So how do we provide that opportunity? How do we create a level playing field, give them a head start, give women a head start, so that they can move up together with men? So that is what is, this SDG 5 is talking about. How do we give these opportunities? How do we bring them together? Now, I think we're just coming to the close of the session, but I just wanted to give you a small glimpse from the world of work, because you are students, you're going to be future entrepreneurs. You will be working now very soon as you graduate from the university. And the question is, what do you need to know about gender? What do you need to know about world of work? So, there are some myths that women don't want to work outside. So ILO did a huge survey in 2018-19. It's called Gallup survey. And this was done across the globe. So it is not just India, it is around the world. And there was a myth that women don't want to work outside the home. But when they asked men and women, is it really true? The answer was that women do really want to work, and men agree. Men also want the women to work. So if you look at the data, 69.8% of the women said we want to be in paid work, and 66.5% of the men said yes, they want the women to be in paid work. So this whole notion that men don't want the women to work, men want the women to stay at home, this is not true. Men also want the women to work. Maybe they want them to work in safety, but yes, they want to work. Now, another thing that we need to see, if you look at the data, we see that only 45.3% of the women are employed compared to 71.4% of the men. Now, if women want to work, why are they not working? Why only 45% of them are in the paid workforce when they want to work, when men also want them to work? So that is the question, is that which is very, very important. And from an educational institution point of view, I just wanted to point out that around 21.2% of the youth are neither in employment nor in education or training. So they're actually not even studying, they're not working, they're just idle. And that's kind of important, because out of these 21.2%, 70% are women. So women are not in training, women are not in employment, and that's very critical, because if you want to have prosperity, if you want to have GDP, increase in GDP, we want that women should be in the labor force. We also see that education is important, but that's not the real reason why women don't get jobs. So around 41% of the women with university degree are either unemployed or outside the labor force. But if you compare to men, only 17.2% of men are in similar situation. So what hinders the women's employment opportunities? Why are women not in jobs? And this is important because many times women are paid less than men. Their jobs are considered less skilled. Even if you look at the Minimum Wages Act of India, you will see the occupations where women are more, the wages are less. And also, they face far more, um, bad working conditions than men. If you really look at the workplaces, because most of them work in informal economy, where the working conditions are not as good as in the formal sector. And then they're also contributing to the domestic and home-based work, and many of them are also migrants. They don't get good work, and therefore they cannot work. Also, we found that around 21.7% of the women actually perform unpaid care work on full-time basis. What I really mean by unpaid care work is that taking care of the family, taking care of children, taking care of older people at home. So they are, 21% of the women cannot enter the workforce because they have to take care of the family, take care of the children. And this is happening because we don't have public provision of care. We don't have old age homes, we don't have disability homes, we don't have childcare facilities, and therefore women cannot enter the workforce. Uh, and as I said, women spend an average of 4 hours and 25 minutes per day doing unpaid care work, while men spend only 1 hour 23 minutes. This is the global picture. So around 209 years will be needed to close this gender gap in the time spent in unpaid work by women. So I urge all of you to share the household work, so that women, if you really want gender equality, men and women should equally share household work, and recognize that. Also, 48% of the mothers of young children are employed, compared to 53% of the women without children. So if you have a child, you lose on employment. And this motherhood employment penalty is increasing. So earlier it used to be less, but now more and more women are out of jobs because of motherhood. It's also because the joint family systems are breaking up. But if you look at men, it's very funny. If you're a man and if you have children, you are actually paid more. You get more promotions. And we saw that women have to lose their job. So this is quite funny that men, more men are there in managerial position compared to women, and especially when they have children. So maybe they start getting paid more. The companies pay them more because now they have children and they need more money. But the same is not true for women. So there is a 20% gender gap between men and women. Men get paid 20% more than women globally. So what we really find is that in the world of work, education does matter, but it's not the main reason. Caregiving plays a very big role of why women are not in the workflows, why there is motherhood penalties for women, but there is a motherhood benefit for the men because they get paid more. There is lower and unequal pay, there is violence and harassment. Technology doesn't reach the women, and women have weak voice and representation. And that's the reason why we are focusing on gender in the world of work. Uh, do we have any questions at this stage before I take you to the ILO and the world of work and give you some resources? I will be happy to answer them now. If you have any questions.
Yeah, any questions from the participants? If you want to write your question in the chat box, please do it. Please, ma'am, we can go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, Parithi has some question, I guess. Parithi?
Yes, please.
Yeah, please continue, ma'am.
Okay. So I just thought that I'll also take you to some of the resources, because there are many students here and they may want to know a little bit more on SDG 5.
I'm sorry, ma'am. Excuse me, ma'am. One question is there from Shia Rai.
Yes,
Shia
please.
wants to ask that how effective is reservation in promoting gender diversity at workplaces?
So we do need what we call as positive discrimination. This is an example of how do we, uh, since women are not coming in workplaces, how do we actually encourage women participation? So one way is the positive discrimination, and by positive discrimination we talk about reservation. So if you look at the parliament, we have reservation for women. We in the Panchayati Raj, you know, I'm sorry, in the parliament they're demanding 33% reservation for women. They still haven't got it. But if you look at the Panchayati Raj institutions, there are reservations, and that reservations have helped. Now the question is, should we do this in private sector also? Well, that question remains open, but what we have seen is that if you have a diverse workforce, by diverse workforce I mean people, not just men and women, but if you have, for example, people from different backgrounds, people with disabilities, people who are transgenders, people who have different sexual orientation, people who have diverse skills, the workplaces are far more productive because you're able to bring in experiences of people from different backgrounds. And by making very small suitable accommodations, the workplace productivity actually increases. And this we have seen in many workplaces where you're more inclusive about, say, hiring people who have suffered violence or who have been rescued from trafficking, for example, or forced labor, or for example, women who are deaf and dumb. I try to work with young adolescent girls who are deaf and dumb, skill them in garment work, and all of them got absorbed in garment factories. They were from Odisha and they got absorbed in garment factories in Tamil Nadu. Now what was happening was that productivity of these girls were actually far more compared to the productivity of other boys and girls, because they were deaf. They could not hear the sound of the sewing machine, which is very bothersome. And if we work in the garment factory, we would be really, it would be so disturbing to us. But because they could not hear that, the productivity increased for them. So the owners were very happy. And this was the first time that these girls and boys who were deaf and dumb got a formal job with a regular pay, with Provident Fund, ESI, and they were very happy and very committed. They were very excited. The families were very excited. And the productivity of these group of boys and girls was much higher compared to other people. So the idea is not just to also mainstream gender, but mainstream different kind of people, and let the the workplace be more diverse and inclusive.
Ma'am, one thing I must say that with this face, you are just addressing very serious issues. What kind of problem is, sometimes we get angry out of this, that why this is the situation. But really, ma'am, it is the good way that you are explaining it. Ma'am, one question I just want to ask, adding on the question, in the parliament, we do understand that if any country is keeping some percentage of reservation, or in our entrepreneurship also, when we talk about uh, women enterprise, there too, ma'am, what kind of women are actually participating, that is coming from the side of either their husband or their family, that they are asking them, or on the back side, ma'am, they are taking advantage of this, that they are putting in the front line as their wife or as their family member, then after they are taking control of it. So is this can be treated as a women actual participation?
That's a very interesting question. And, when the Panchayati Raj reservation had come in, 50% reservation for women in Panchayati Raj institutions, this was exactly what was happening. We had this concept of Panchayat Pradhan, which was the husband of the women Panchayat leader. So even if she was, uh, she had become the Panchayat head, it was de facto the husband who was running the panchayat. So the same question came in, is it really an empowerment? But if you see, slowly things changed. Slowly the women started gaining power. and they started exercising this voice. I work with women workers, I work with informal women workers, domestic workers, home-based workers, who are part of the global supply chain. For example, the clothes that you're wearing from H&M, Zara, who makes them? You know about the large factories which are there in Tamil Nadu, Bangalore. They are the ones who are manufacturing for the world. But the work from these factories actually go to the women in homes. Who stitches the button or who embroideries? It's not the large factories. The embroidery actually happens in homes of women, but those women are not recognized. The way to recognize them is to organize them, unionize them. So we are working with trade unions to organize them, unionize them, give them the collective voice and strength. And this is the same thing that happens in the case of Panchayati Raj leaders, for example. A lot of trainings and empowerment trainings have built this voice, has built this collectiveness, that now with the collective voice they can speak. There have been studies where you have women as panchayat heads. The women have spent money on building community halls, building bridges, school buildings. But where men are there, the money has been spent on something different, which is not sustainable. So women tend to think of the community, and therefore the community has started respecting that, and women are finding their voice. So initially you have this dummy husband. Women are seen as dummies and actually the men controlling, but slowly things change. When women are economically empowered, things start changing, and this is what we've seen across the world.
Right, ma'am, right. Ma'am, one
Just need
question
to
is,
give that an opportunity.
yeah, ma'am. One question is asked from Sneh Gupta, and the question is this: that what kind of media campaigning have been initiated by the government for gender equality?
Government is doing a lot on gender equality. Beti Padhao, Beti Bachao is another one. A lot of schemes are there to promote women entrepreneurship, promote girl children in education, stipends, incentive if the girl does clear class 12th. Many states have incentive for graduation of girl children, single girl child also. Apart from that, several UN agencies are also doing campaign, because right now I was planning to show you what ILO is doing in terms of gender, but there are several other UN agencies who are looking at gender from different point of views. So if you are interested, I can share some resources for you on that.
Thank you. Ma'am, one question is also there, but I think that would be better if we can address this particular question after getting information by you regarding this ILO. But the question is this, ma'am, that what opportunities initiated and offered by ILO to developing countries is specific to promote gender equality, including entrepreneurship for weaker sections. But I would like, ma'am, that after completing this information about ILO, then after we will be taking this question.
Sure. So let me take you to SDG 5 and the world of work. What does SDG look in the world of work? Because I come from the world of work, which is the ILO. So we have, can you see the screen?
Yes, yes, ma'am, we can see.
Okay. So these are the relevant sustainable development goals which are related to gender equality and non-discrimination, which are being also looked at by the ILO. So when we look at SDG 5, SDG 5 is connected to several other sustainable development goals where ILO is also working. So for example, if you talk about poverty, goal 1.4 says that all men and women should who are poor and vulnerable should have right to economic resources, should have right to basic services, ownership, control over land and property, natural resources. So ILO works on this issue. We enable, how can you eliminate poverty? You can eliminate poverty by enabling social protection, by enabling jobs and job security. So this part comes from the ILO. Another SDG goal, which is goal 4.5, which we look at, how do we eliminate gender disparities in education and access to all level of education, not just for women, but also for the vulnerable people with disabilities, indigenous people, people who are tribals, or people who are children who are in vulnerable circumstances, child labor. So this is where ILO works. We also look at, of course, 5.2 in elimination of violence and harassment. I think what is important here to mention is that ILO has come up with a new convention on prevention of gender-based violence and harassment at workplace. That's a convention which is broader than sexual harassment. Sexual harassment is a smaller concept, but what ILO is talking about, prevention of gender-based violence and harassment, which includes sexual harassment, but it's talk about larger harassment which happens in work for both men and women. Also recognizing the value of paid work and domestic work. We have a domestic workers convention also. We are looking at how do women earn equal to men, equal participation of women in different kinds of decision-making positions. And then another one that I want to focus on is goal 8.5, which is about full and productive employment and decent work for all men and women, including young people, people with disabilities, and equal pay for equal value of work. How do men, women get paid equal? So again, ILO has a lot of resources. I will share this links with you. Another one which is very important is about protection of labor rights for men and women, and enabling rights for migrants, for women migrants, and those in precarious employments. So ILO looks at how labor market policies are inclusive on gender. How do we promote employment and economic growth with equal participation of men and women? How do we look at enterprise development, especially enterprises owned by women? I'm actually working with women enterprise entrepreneurs in Nepal and India, and we are helping them formalize their enterprises, helping them secure loans at subsidized rates, training them in business literacy skills, training them on how to export their products in global market. So a lot of enterprise development work also happens in the ILO. Of course, equality, freedom of association and collective bargaining is about unionization. How do we enable unions of women? How do we look at market information systems, labor standards, and working conditions, especially health and safety for women, not just in large workplaces, but also in homes. And then we talk about equal opportunities by looking at different laws and regulations. So all this work is kind of done by the ILO, and you will find a lot of resources on this website which you can take a look in case you want to have more information. Let me also show you two more web pages of the ILO, which will be useful, especially from the women entrepreneurship development perspective. So we have this Women Entrepreneurship Development Program, or WED, where you will find a lot of resources. We have entrepreneurship training and development support. We also have business development services for women in development. We have different kinds of tools that can be accessed here. We have programs called SIYB, Start and Improve Your Business. We have a program like Get Ahead, which is for women who are not very well educated. We also have a tree approach to entrepreneurship. We have women entrepreneurship checklist, value chain development. So there are a lot of resources which can be used by both men and women, but there is a special section which is also focused on women entrepreneurship development program. So maybe you would like to take a look at this one. And last, I just wanted to share with you some of the training programs which ILO offers. So ILO has an international training center in Turin, Italy, which offers a lot of programs on gender, entrepreneurship, and different aspects related to world of work. Many of these courses are actually also free. So they are online and they're free. You could see the green label, which is free. So any of your students can actually take this, and it is also for professionals. So any of you can actually take these courses, and if they interest you, then you can move on to the paid courses. Most of these courses are available online also now because of COVID. Otherwise, they would happen in Turin. But many of them are available online, and you can actually do it from here. Some of these courses you can also write to the government, and government also sponsors many of the ILO programs. So for us, Ministry of Labor is the key ministry, and many of their people are sponsored by the government to take these programs. So I would encourage you to kindly look at these different kinds of programs which are there, and many of them are focused on entrepreneurship and workplace issues. How do you be more inclusive, how the workplace can be formalized, how do you ensure social security, financial education, or gender and organizational change. So there are several programs that you can look at this ILO website. So this is what I wanted to talk about. And lastly, just wanted to say that all of these goals are very important, and all of them are connected to each other. So when you look at poverty or food or health, all of them are interrelated. So you see gender in all of them. Gender is not alone as goal 5, but gender is actually across all of the 17 goals which are there. So it's kind of mainstreamed in those goals. So in the end, just wanted to conclude that we need to focus on who is the most deprived and how do they live within the society. And then we try to look at, is the situation getting better or worse? Is the inequality new, enduring, or is it improving? Are we moving towards equality and equity? And then prioritize our action, where we as an institution or where we as an organization is taking action, and what are the different things that are prevailing in the outside environment. What are the social norms, what are the legal frameworks, what are the policy implementation, and how do we challenge those as part of our work. So with that, I will just mention that all these SDG indicators are owned by different, they're custodians in the UN who are looking after these indicators. So we have several indicators, and different UN organizations are custodian of different indicators. So ILO, for example, is responsible for the world of work, and 14 SDG indicators are, custodian. ILO is the custodian of those 14 indicators, including on gender and the world of work and employment. So with that, I will conclude, and I would be happy to answer any questions that are there.
Any questions from Bharti ma'am?
Or if anyone wants to share their feedback or experience or any thoughts that they have, it would be wonderful to actually see that.
I also request all the participants, maximum number of participants if possible, to switch on their camera so that we can take one picture of this group. Please, especially all the girls of IGDTW. Rahul, can we have one picture?
Yes, sir, just waiting for them to turn on their camera.
Ma'am's email ID is mentioned in the chat box. It is birla@ilo.org.
Sir, I'm capturing the image.
The link is not coming. I'll send you the link. Would anyone like to share their thoughts, their ideas, or any questions?
Ma'am, ऐसा बोला जाता है कि वुमेन अच्छी तरह से ड्रेसअप नहीं होते प्रॉपरली, इसलिए उनके साथ में मतलब उल्टी सीधी चीजें होती है। इस चीज से आप कितना मतलब वाकिफ रखते हो?
अगर ये बात सच होती तो छोटे बच्चों का क्यों होता रेप, या 70 साल की महिला जो होती है उनका रेप क्यों होता? अगर अगर कपड़ों से ही होता है तो ऐसा क्यों होता कि छोटे बच्चों का भी क्यों होता है? 2 साल के बच्चे, 6 महीने के बच्चे। तो कहीं ना कहीं हमारे यहाँ पे ये जो इशू है, हमारे यहाँ पे हम लोग सेक्स एजुकेशन, ज्यादातर लोग इंटरनेट से सेक्स एजुकेशन करते हैं, उनको जेंडर के बारे में समझाया नहीं जाता। किसी लड़के को कभी कोई डॉल नहीं दी जाती है खेलने के लिए, क्यों? वो लड़का क्या कभी बड़े होके उसकी फ्रेंड नहीं होगी, गर्लफ्रेंड नहीं होगी, वाइफ नहीं होगी, बच्चा नहीं होगा? क्या उसकी बहन नहीं होगी? तो हम ऐसा क्यों करते हैं? ऐसे ही कोई भी लड़की को गन नहीं दी जाती खेलने के लिए, बैट नहीं दिया जाता, क्यों? क्या वो बड़े होके आर्मी में नहीं जा सकती है? क्या वो बड़े होके, अगर आप देखें जितनी भी हमारी रेसलर्स हैं हरियाणा से, उसमें से कोई भी आदमी उनसे लड़ सकता है क्या? या साइना नेहवाल से कोई बैडमिंटन में जीत सकता है लड़का? ऑर्डिनरी, मैं ऑर्डिनरी लोगों की बात कर रही हूँ, प्लेयर्स की बात नहीं कर रही हूँ। तो ये जो हमारे जेंडर सोशल कॉन्स्ट्रक्ट हैं, चाहे वो कपड़ों के बारे में हो या आदमी ये कर सकते हैं औरतें ये नहीं कर सकती हैं, सब गलत है। सारे कुक्स आदमी होते हैं ज्यादातर, बड़े बड़े बड़ी बड़ी जितने भी आप होटल्स देखेंगे उसमें मेन कुक करते हैं, टेलर्स मेन होते हैं। बट जब वही चीज घर में आ जाती है, क्योंकि घर में उसकी कोई कीमत नहीं होती है, तो उसमें महिलाएं करती हैं। तो हमारे और ये जो कपड़ों की बात होती है, तो बहुत सारे आदमी लोग कुएं पे जाके नहाते हैं, तो वुमेन तो नहीं जाके उनको रेप करती ना। तो ये मेंटालिटी हमारे जो है उसको धीरे धीरे बदलना है, और इसमें एक बहुत बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट रोल होता है सेक्स एजुकेशन का, जो अभी हमारे स्कूल्स में कर दिया है, पर बहुत जगह मैंने देखा कि उनको पढ़ाया ही नहीं जाता बच्चों को, वो चैप्टर को स्किप कर दिया जाता है। तो जब तक आप बॉयज और गर्ल्स को बताएंगे नहीं, उनको ठीक से इसके बारे में जानेंगे नहीं, एक दूसरे को जानेंगे नहीं, तब तक ये कैसे बदलेगा? इंटरनेट से तो आप जो सुनते हैं और जो देखते हैं वो रियलिटी नहीं होती, रियलिटी कुछ और होती है। तो इसके लिए सेक्स एजुकेशन भी बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, और बॉयज और गर्ल्स को उनके बारे में जानने का पूरा अधिकार है, और स्कूल्स में ये ट्रेनिंग होनी चाहिए, ताकि इस तरह की जो हमारी सोच है वो धीरे धीरे बदलेगी जब हम एक दूसरे को जानेंगे। और हमारे यहाँ कॉन्सेप्ट में भी, जो जैसे अगर आप देखेंगे तो हिंदू माइथोलॉजी में कॉन्सेप्ट है अर्ध नारीश्वर का, दैट मीन्स आधा नर आधा नारी, और हम सब वैसे हैं, हम सब के अंदर वो क्वालिटीज हैं जो एक पुरुष में भी होती है और एक महिला में होती है, बायोलॉजिकली भी होती हैं और वैसे भी इमोशनली भी होती है। हम सब कुछ केपेबल हैं करने के लिए, बट क्वेश्चन ये कि हम उसको क्या ठीक से बचपन से हमको उस तरीके से बड़ा उस तरह से करा जाता है? अगर बेल बजती है तो सबसे पहले लड़के को बोला जाता है तुम दरवाजा खोल दो, पानी देना है तो लड़की देंगी। ये सब हम बचपन से ऐसा देखते चले आ रहे हैं, और यही चीज आगे बढ़ती चली जाती है। तो इसको चैलेंज करने के लिए थोड़ा अलग सोचना जरूरी है, और स्पेशली ये जो रेप के केसेस और ये सब भी होते हैं, उसमें बहुत बार हमने देखा गया कि लोगों को एक दूसरे की महत्वता के बारे में पता नहीं होता, और सारी सेक्स एजुकेशन हमारी गलत ढंग से होती है।
मैम कैन आई शेयर वन एक्सपीरियंस ऑफ माइंड मैम?
श्योर, प्लीज डू।
मैम मैं तो लास्ट लगभग 20 ईयर्स से पढ़ा रहा हूँ, और 20 ईयर्स में मैंने लड़कों को भी पढ़ाया काफी और काफी गर्ल्स को भी पढ़ाया। बट व्हाट द चेंज आई एम सीइंग दैट एक्चुअली द माइंडसेट ऑफ मेल, दैट इज मैन, दैट इज चेंजिंग टुवर्ड्स वुमेन नाउ।
यस, यस,
इट इज चेंजिंग मैम।
इट इज चेंजिंग एंड इट इज वेरी वेरी इनकरेजिंग। क्योंकि हमारे यहाँ पे हमने देखा है कि अब बहुत सारे वुमेन, जो मैंने आपको सर्वे भी दिखाया कि ये सब लोग बोलते थे आदमी लोग नहीं चाहते कि वुमेन काम करे, ऐसा नहीं है। आदमी चाहते हैं वुमेन काम करे, मगर उसकी सेफ्टी और सिक्योरिटी को वो इंश्योर करना चाहते हैं, क्योंकि वो सेफ नहीं है, और वो चाहते हैं कि वो भी आगे बढ़े। और बहुत इसीलिए जब हम जेंडर की बात करते हैं तो इट्स नॉट अबाउट वुमेन, इट्स अबाउट मेन एंड वुमेन टुगेदर। रिकॉग्नाइज करना कि हम लोग अलग हैं, फर्क हैं, अलग अलग ढंग से सोचते हैं, मगर साथ मिलके काम करना है। और एक दूसरे की स्ट्रेंथ्स को हम कैसे हार्नेस करें। तो इंडिया में बहुत चीजें बदल रही हैं, और आज अगर आप देखेंगे हाउस होल्ड में भी मेन का रोल धीरे धीरे इंक्रीज हो रहा है, चाहे वो हाउस होल्ड रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज को शेयर करना हो या विमेन को आगे प्रमोट करना हो। कम से कम अगर आपके एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप में औरतों के नाम से बिजनेस रजिस्टर होता है, एक दिन वो उसको हैंडल भी करेंगी। एक बहुत ब्यूटीफुल सीरियल आ रहा था पंचायत, मुझे पता नहीं आप में से कितने लोगों ने देखा है वो सीरियल पंचायत, वेब सीरीज है, बट उसमें भी वही है कि महिला पंचायत है और एक्चुअली सारा काम जो है वो पुरुष उनके हस्बैंड करते हैं। मगर एक दिन ऐसा आता है कि वो महिला को लगता है मैं कर क्या रही हूँ, वो खुद उठ के वो पंचायत लीडर का रोल लेती हैं। तो जब तक उनको हम ये अपॉर्चुनिटी नहीं देंगे तो वो आएगी नहीं। और बहुत सारे लोग आजकल, परिवार के लोग सब ये अपॉर्चुनिटी दे रहे हैं। मैं तो खुद ही मेरी जब शादी हुई थी मैंने सिर्फ फार्मेसी करा हुआ था, और आज उसके बाद मैंने एमबीए करा, उसके बाद मैंने लॉ करा, अब मैं एलएलएम कर रही हूँ, पीएचडी भी कर रही थी। तो ये सब मेरे फैमिली के सपोर्ट के बिना नहीं हो सकता था। तो आई थिंक थिंग्स आर चेंजिंग वेरी मच, एंड इट्स बिकॉज ऑफ मेन दैट दे आर चेंजिंग। क्योंकि कुछ मेन ऐसे हैं जो इस चेंज को लीड कर रहे हैं और उसकी वजह से चेंजेस आ रहे हैं। सो इट्स अ वेरी इनकरेजिंग एनवायरनमेंट नाउ।
Rightly said, ma'am. Any other question, please? We are having now, we are behind the time now. It's already 11:16, ma'am. We need to close also the session. So if there is any question, we can take only one question.
Ma'am, I wanted to just share an experience, recent
Yes.
experience. So just yesterday, there was a woman on Twitter who was sharing her experience of discrimination in tech, like how women are not given that much importance as their male counterparts. So
Right.
there was this one man in the comments who said that women who want to be in tech are in tech. So I think this is where the majority of the problem lies. People, especially men, refuse to acknowledge that there is a problem in the first place.
Yes, I agree with you. We can only make a change if we recognize the problem. How many women do they get the opportunity? I just showed you the statistics. Very few women go into higher education. Going to tech is another thing, you know. That's another higher level. All of you are privileged that you're part of this, esteemed university. It's a privilege for women to be in such university, and the government is encouraging women to be in tech because they've thought of a separate technical university for women. So that's something which is really, really needed. The fact is that women even don't get the opportunity to do higher education. Going to college is something like a dream. I've been to places, near Calcutta, where I met a group of girls who can't go to school because there is no higher education school close to their village. And this is common in many, many villages across India, that primary schools are there, but to go to a, higher secondary school, they have to travel 2 to 4 kilometers on bicycle or walk, and it's not safe. So they have to leave education. They have to take care of their siblings. There are no toilets in the school. So there are multiple reasons why women do not even achieve higher education. Going to tech is, I think that's where we need to be collective, and I think institution like yours is doing a good thing to show that yes, we need a positive discrimination like that. We need special institutions, or we need more women in tech or STEM. A lot of scholarships are also there for women in STEM, so we need that.
Thank you, ma'am. And we are also fortunate, ma'am, to have a very visionary Vice Chancellor, ma'am, with us, and Dr. Amita Dev. Ma'am, you must be knowing about this, that our ma'am, along with the Delhi government, is now coming up with 2 more initiatives. One is basically to handhold the girls students of government schools from class 9 to 12 towards STEM. And second one is to skill or to reskill or upskill those women because of any reason they couldn't continue their career, or there's a gap in their career, or which is known as mid-age crisis. So there also we are helping, and let's see that what the change we bring in the society. But these are the 2 basic initiatives which Delhi government is doing now, and we are going to implement it from this month only in association with IGDDUW.
That's very nice. Many congratulations to all of you for this wonderful initiative.
Thank you, ma'am. So, ma'am, I think there are now enough number of questions. Otherwise, we will continue it. It will go till 12 noon. So, ma'am, once again, thanks a lot, ma'am, for sparing time with our students and with our other partner institutes. To all the participants, thanks a lot. Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot, ma'am.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
To all of you.
Thanks.